It's something that a lot of people close to me do not know about me. I was in and out of hospital for months on end. Just talking about it now, I'm just like, what the actual hell was this place? It was just basically 2 years of meeting the worst people ever, like I've ever encountered in my life. Hi friends, welcome back to my channel, it's Farah. So today's video is going to be a story time. I don't really do much of these on my channel and I was really apprehensive to actually start filming this one, but I'm going to be telling you the story of a little place I like to call the sixth form from hell. Now it is a very vulnerable, sticky situation kind of story to share, touching on topics that I've never really properly discussed on any social media platform before, and I'm not sure if I'm ready to discuss them. But the reasons that I did want to share this video, aside from the fact that it's one heck of a story time, other than that fact, I just thought that, do you know what, there are young children still in school probably going through the same things that I did or a version of them, and they're probably feeling really alone, and my hope is that they find this video and realise that they are in fact not alone. They're not the only ones going through traumatic things while at school, whether that's because of teachers, friends, the school leadership in general. I had it all, so yeah, that's really kind of why I wanted to make this video, just for those people and just to kind of remind you that things get better. I'm in a much better place now. Like, that part of your life doesn't last forever. It is a really dark, scary place that you can get into when you have situations at school where you kind of just feel like you're being targeted almost. Hopefully you like storytime videos, and if you do, make sure you give this one a thumbs up and let me know. Also subscribe to my channel down below if you haven't already. And with all that being said, let's get into the story. By the way, imagine if my hair was this short. Do you think it suits me? I kind of low-key think it suits me. My hair is actually this long, but this is like the bit that's been tied up, and I think it looks a lot cuter. So this is what we're going with. Okay, so let me start with a bit of context. When I joined my sixth form, I joined brand new. I went to a completely different secondary school, and I didn't know anybody at the sixth form. I also joined with none of my secondary school friends because they all went to a college instead. So I was totally alone. And in hindsight, I don't know if I made a good decision, but then everything happens for a reason. So just before I actually joined, I used to do something called Duke of Edinburgh Award. A lot of you, if you're in the UK, you will know what that is. And that was like a club that we did outside of school, and I actually came across some girls that I ended up going to sixth form with later on at that group. Having said that though, I never spoke to them. It was just kind of like I saw them in passing. So then when I actually started the sixth form, I didn't have any friends, I didn't know anybody, and the majority of people that were in the sixth form had come from that high school, so they just moved up a year essentially, and they already knew everybody, including those girls that I briefly knew from the Duke of Edinburgh club. And because they were kind of familiar faces to me, I kind of just instantly gravitated towards that group. That they were already a fully formed friendship group when I joined. They were very nice girls in the beginning, and because of that, I just kind of naturally became friends with them, was in their friendship group. There was actually another girl that I met at the induction who was also completely new to the school. She also didn't really know anybody. She was actually my favourite person there, and I don't think I would have got through it if I didn't have a friend like her. She knows who she is if she ever ends up watching this video. Now, in terms of where the problems start, there are a few layers and reasons for why this was the worst 2 years of my life. There is one particular reason which I actually won't go into too much detail in this video because it could literally take up a whole video in itself. There was a particular person that I did meet at sixth form, and the reason I won't go into it in too much detail in this video is because the way I was treated by them and just the horrible acts that they were doing towards me actually continued after sixth form. And yeah, it was a very crazy story in itself, and it turned into a whole separate issue beyond sixth form, so I can do a separate video on that. That was a large part of why it was such a scarring, traumatic experience, sixth form as a whole. Majority of the other reasons were actually down to the school itself, not just the people in my actual year group. So firstly, the friends issue. So the friendship group that I ended up being friends with, they were showing so many red flags right from the beginning, and in hindsight, do you know what, I saw them then and there, but because I was so new, I was always the type of person, and still am, I'm always very shy when I first meet someone. I don't really open up, I don't really speak too much. I just kind of assess the situation, and I'm polite. I'm the kind of person that just doesn't speak until they're spoken to, very introverted when I first meet someone. It takes a bit of time for me to warm up to you, unless you're someone that I just click with instantly, which is very rare. So that's just like my personality type, and especially in school I was very much that way when I first met people. The main reason for that is because of previous experiences I'd had with friends. That kind of just put me straight in my shell, and I was very apprehensive when I met new people, so that's kind of where that came from. So these girls I don't know what the hell was wrong with them. Always gave off this mean girl vibe, you know, like really nice to your face, but you just knew they were bitching hard behind your back. Because they'd just come from high school and they were still in the same school setting, it was almost like they were school kids, just really bratty school kids that didn't really grow up and mature because they were still at the same school. So they just, yeah, it was a weird situation. But yeah, I would say the main struggles occurred at school was because of the actual like teachers in school itself. They were so toxic, and I think that kind of almost like filtered down to the students. Like the school setup was just horrible, and the type of people that were in charge were really like unreasonable people that didn't have your best interests at heart. I got so many bad vibes and so many different teachers, but one of the worst things that they did were basically, because I was from a low income family, I had a bursary at that school, which meant that they would give me a certain allowance I could spend on school stuff like books, stationery, anything to do with school, just to help me, because that's what a bursary's for. I was also on free school meals, which was really awkward, and I think at some point my friends started to figure that out, because the system at that school was so messed up. I feel like they just genuinely wanted to embarrass you. Like that was their motive, because I just don't understand any other reason why you would like, there's kids that are obviously from struggling backgrounds, and then you're shouting about it at school basically when they're already having a hard time, when friends are being awkward with them for God knows what reason. And obviously they didn't know that, like the dinner ladies or whatever, but still there's certain issues that you're sensitive about, and that's one of them, I think. So anyways, I'd get to the front of the queue and I'd tell them what I want, and then they'd wait for the money, but I had free school meals. I'd be like, oh, my name should be on the list, and then they'd spend like years trying to get the list out, going through all the names. Then they'd be shouting like what my name is and how much money I've spent. I don't know, just being so obnoxious about the whole thing. It was so traumatizing, because when you're in school, the lines are big and all the students are literally like cramped in these little lines. You can hear everything happening, and it's just the most uncomfortable, awkward thing. So I would like go in queue with my friends, and then this whole commotion would be going on, and I'd honestly just think to myself, this is why I had like jobs from early on, because I was like, let me just pay for my food at school, because this is just so embarrassing. I would rather just like try and pay for it myself. What made it even worse was that, so when I had the bursary, I didn't want anyone to know, any of my friends. Like, I don't think they were like super well off, but they definitely were like living comfortable lives. I just didn't want them to know that they were already being awkward with me. They didn't really like me. I already knew that. And I just thought, I don't need to give them something else to be weird with me about. So I tried to keep it a secret. I didn't tell anyone, not even the girls that I did like. I just didn't want anyone to know. It's something that you shouldn't be ashamed of, but as a kid, you are embarrassed about things like that, especially when you're the only one in your friendship group. When you have friends that are splashing like designer items and their brand new phones and this and that, and then you're there like trying to get the money from school. Like, it's awkward. So I tried to keep it on the down low. At the beginning, they were quite sensitive to it. Like, they knew that it was something that, it was confidential as well. Like, you can't just go shouting about stuff like that. Nobody needs to know what students are struggling more than others, type of thing. And I remember distinctly, there was one day I was walking with my friend up the stairs to like our common room, and one of the heads of years was walking down the opposite direction to us, and for God knows what reason she did this, but she just turned to me, like while I was talking to my friend, like, she turned to me and she says, oh, by the way, Farah, you know the bursary money, we're gonna have to discuss whether we can actually like get that for you or not, and we'll discuss how much. And she was like trying to have a full conversation with me in the middle of a corridor about my bursary money, and obviously I hadn't told my friends about the fact that I needed that. Like, it was just such a traumatic thing. It's horrible. It probably sounds like, so now looking back, I'm like, there's no reason to be embarrassed about stuff like that. But I still feel those emotions that I felt back then, and as a kid, and as someone that's already been taunted so much by people at school and already had all these kinds of issues with kids. It was the last thing I wanted, was for people to find that out. So I was traumatized, and I would just try to play it off. I was like, yeah, we can discuss it later. And I was like, why does she not just like call me to her office? Why does she not just wait till I was by myself? Just so unprofessional. And for an adult to do that, I just thought, like, what the hell are you doing? And then as time went on, I think it was towards the end of my first year, I randomly get called into the head of year's office. All of a sudden they tell me I can't sit in the sixth form's canteen anymore when I'm having my lunch. I'm like, sorry, what? Just for a bit of context, if you haven't been to a sixth form before, the sixth form is basically at the school. So you have your classes in the same classrooms that the rest of the school, you know, the high school has the classrooms. But the sixth form students typically have their own building where they eat, where they have their common room, where they just have like more leisurely space, and where the head of year's office is, like that's in a separate building. And nobody that is not a sixth form student is allowed in there. Like none of the years below are allowed in there, because it's just for sixth form students, just to like create that divide between being a school student and being at sixth form. But then the rest of your classes are in just the normal classrooms and across the school. So I get told one lunchtime I need to go to the main school canteen. Bear in mind, I'm brand new at this school. Bear in mind, I don't know anyone else except for these girls that I've finally kind of started to build a friendship with. And now I'm just getting kicked out of my canteen out of nowhere. And it was just me, obviously. So they were telling me, like, you need to go and eat there. You can't come in the sixth form block anymore. It's like their own block. And then they sent a letter home to my parents. And they said, so also something I didn't mention at the beginning, I never went to year 2. So I actually skipped year. Back in year 2. So from year 3 onwards, I was in that year group. Like the only year I ever skipped was year 2, and there's a weird story behind that. I think in year 1 I went to a school where a teacher was treating me like the teacher's assistant, because I'd finished all the work first and I'd have nothing left to do. So I was like helping other kids, I wasn't learning anything. So my mum spoke to the school about it, and their solution was to just move me up a year so that I could actually do like more challenging work, and that stuck. So wherever school I went to after that, I was always in the year above where I technically should be. Born in September, so I'm on the cusp anyway. So I was either the oldest in one year group or the youngest in another. So it just ended up that I was in the year above, so I was the youngest in my year group by like a month or so. But that was since year 3 onwards. I'm in year 11, 12 at this point, so there's not really any difference. Like completing my GCSEs already. I was halfway through my A-levels. There was no missing piece of my educational history, which is why they had an issue. The only issue they had was my age. They said I can't possibly be part of the sixth form when I'm too young for it. Yet they wanted me to continue my A-level exams, but I wasn't allowed in the sixth form block. And better yet, they wanted me to wear a school uniform. So when you go to sixth form, you wear a suit, or at least the sixth form I went to, we had to wear smart clothing, so like what you'd wear to the office. They said I had to now wear school uniform to my classes. My classes were going to be with the A-level students who are all in suits. For the past 6 months or however long it was that I joined, at that point I was wearing suits, there was no issues. So I was going to continue all my classes and everything was going to stay the same, but I wasn't allowed to sit with the sixth form students at lunch, and I had to wear a school uniform. That was the only thing that was changing. It wasn't that my performance was bad, so then I had to like change classes or I had to go down a year. None of that. My education stayed the same. It was just what I was wearing and where I was going that was different. And I was just like, is this a joke? Like, am I living a joke life? Like, they tried to stop the bursary as well. So an added issue was that I couldn't have the bursary if I wasn't the right age for it. And the real kicker was that when I applied for the sixth form and got approved in the first place, they had my age, they had all my details, and it was never raised then. Like, it was never an issue when I joined the sixth form. I had all the required grades that they wanted. I gave them all my information up front, and you can't really join a sixth form until you do that. So it was so bizarre that randomly 6 months later or a year down the line, suddenly I was stripped of all my sixth former rights. Yet I was continuing as an A-level student, as a sixth form student. So, a long story short, my parents thought the school. It was just bogus, like it didn't even make any sense. So they fought their arguments and said it's absolutely ridiculous that you can't do that. She's already been at the sixth form this amount of time. You're not taking her out of her classes. You're just embarrassing her. Like, that's such an embarrassing thing to do. Bear in mind, all they've been doing so far is embarrassing me. Oh my god, just talking about it now, I'm just like, what the actual hell was this place? It was hell. It was actual hell. Anyways, so with all this going on, again, my friends have no idea. I'm in all this drama. The school's trying to like kick me out. God knows they probably have told all the students as well, because that's the type of people that were in charge. They were like gossipy, tried to get too friendly with students, so they would like gossip and like get in with the drama. They were like those types of people. Oh, so horrible. Like, they just weren't professional at all. But anyways, my parents fought the school, and honestly, thank the Lord for my parents, because they are the type of parents to back you hard, and they've always backed me all the way through school. They always fought my corner, and this was just one of the many occasions that they had to fight my corner again. Both my parents had so many meetings with the school. They wrote them letters. They just fought my case, essentially, to the point where they eventually had to agree, because they'd already approved me. There was no issues. Like, I was on track. I got the grades that I needed for uni, for goodness sake. It was just crazy. So anyways, they ended up like letting me stay in the sixth form. I was allowed in this common room, blah, blah, blah. So nothing changed except for my bursary. Instead of just giving me the money for the bursary, they had to manage that money. So initially, they just give me the lump sum, and then I would go and spend it on my school stuff, my bus tickets, whatever it was. But now that I was suddenly too young to manage the money, I had to go to them every time I needed to get something for school, which was humiliating in itself. Like, the amount of times I had to ask them for stuff and that I get things approved, like, it was just a faff. Anyways, especially when you're trying to get A-levels on top of having all this stress on top. It was not an easy experience. And then once that all passed, I think they induced so much stress that that's when I ended up getting appendicitis. I don't even know if I had appendicitis, but they removed my appendix anyway. So I was out for my last year of sixth form. I can't remember the timelines fully because I was out of it. For the majority of that period, I was in and out of hospital for months on end. It was in the beginning of my second year of sixth form, and you have to do mocks in like Christmas time. So it was only a few months after we joined, like came back for the second year. And that was when I got ill. So I was ill pretty much since like the November, October time, all the way until like February, March the next year. And I think that's when I officially came back. So I'd missed the winter mocks. So because they didn't have my predicted grades, they were like, yeah, you can't sit your exams. And I was like, why can I not sit my exams? Just because you don't know what grade I'm going to get doesn't mean I can't sit the exam. And they basically tried to force me to retake my year because I had been out. Now, I partially understand the reasoning, because some part of my brain wants me to believe that they had my best interests at heart. They wanted me to rest properly. But the other part, just from my previous experience with them, I just knew they wanted to screw me over. For some weird reason, they just had it out for me. So they were adamant that I couldn't sit my A-level exams because I hadn't taken my mocks, and because they didn't know what grades I was going to get, I don't know what their logic was. But anyways, I was still attending school as much as I could. I was then battling against the school to let me take my exams whilst trying to study hard for my exams. I'd already applied to unis at that point, so I had grades that I knew I had to get. They were very high grades. My top uni was Warwick. At the beginning it was Oxford or Cambridge, one of them. I actually had Oxford or Cambridge at the top, and then it was Warwick. And because I got ill, I couldn't take my interview I got an interview, which one was it? I think it was Cambridge. I was going to do law there, and I couldn't take my interview because I was in hospital. So I think they just reviewed like the written documents that we gave them, something like that, but obviously they declined me because I didn't go. So then my next option was Warwick, which I really wanted, and that's where I ended up going. And at that point, I was so stressed out by the school, like trying to force me into retaking the year. They caused me that much embarrassment in those 2 years, and they wanted me to do a third. I was like, hell to the no, I'm getting out of here as fast as I can. I'm taking those exams, I'm getting my grades, and I'm getting the hell out. There was no chance that I was going to stay there for another second. There's so many details that I'm missing in terms of like how I was treated there, but I'm telling you the main ones because they're the real kickers. But just know there were so many more occasions where they were just horrible people and just twisted people. But yeah, they basically tried to stop me from taking my exams. I continued to attend school. They would pull me into meetings every single day. I would be eating my lunch innocently, just minding my own business. They would call me into their office every single day. They'd sit me down and tell me, you shouldn't come into school tomorrow. You need to resit the year, take the rest of the year off. I still had like a good few months left and I knew I had it in me to get it done. So what would have been really nice in that situation is for the school to fully back me, give me all the resources I needed, give me their time and energy to make sure I caught up and got my end goal. I needed to get to uni, that was my end goal, and they just were trying to hinder that for some reason. I don't know whether it's because they had an issue that I was younger and not in the right year group, so they were trying with all their might to put me in the right year group, and I think part of that was trying to make me resit that year. Bizarre. I don't know why it bothered them so much, but it was so bizarre. Long story short, I continued my studies. I just attended every after school curricular activity. In terms of, homework sessions after school, I went to see my teachers all the time just to make sure I was all caught up. One of the girls that I was really close with, she helped me a lot as well. Becky, oh my gosh, she was a lifesaver in every form. She was also the new girl that joined, and she was literally my best friend for those 2 years, and I feel so thankful to have had her because she really kept me sane and she really did help me a lot. And then I took my exams and I freaking got the grades that I needed. And I remember my results day so clearly. I was so elated that day. That was probably one of the best days in my life because I just couldn't believe that after all that, I managed to get the grade I needed to and get the hell out of there. So yeah, I actually did it and I never looked back. I cut off everyone. I tried to, actually, it didn't quite work. The good friendship that I had, I kind of messed up towards the end because I became this really paranoid person. I genuinely felt like everyone was out to get me because every conversation I had with the people that were supposed to be there to support me, they were always against me, trying to hold me back, trying to stop me from doing things. And I just felt like I couldn't trust anyone, and especially because, like I mentioned at the beginning, the friendship group, they were not very nice people from the outset. I just really felt on edge all the time. So I actually lied to all my friends about what uni I applied to. And they found out. I don't know how they found out. There was a point where it came out, but by then school was kind of over anyway. I lied and told them it was a different uni. I think I told them Sheffield because I was so scared of Nuzzer at that point, and I was so scared of the evil eye. And I just felt like if people know where I'm actually heading towards and what my goal is, then they're just gonna stop it happening. Like, that was my mindset back then. I was so terrified of it not working out. So I lied and I told all my friends I was planning to go to a completely different uni. And in the end, they found out that Warwick was actually like my top choice. But I just did it because paranoid me was just so scared of it being messed up that I just felt like I was protecting myself in a way. I don't know. But yeah, because of that lie, the people that I was okay with, they kind of went a bit weird with me and they just thought they couldn't trust me, I guess, which, I mean, I did lie, so I can't really like deny that, but sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do, and it made me feel better just knowing that people didn't know what my actual goal was at the time, so I don't have any regrets. But yeah, that was the story of my traumatic 2 years at sixth form. I don't even know if I told that story properly or if I actually conveyed how bad it really was. I know I've missed out a lot, but I know I've been rambling for a really long time, so I just really want to like get to the point and tell you exactly what happened and how bad it was. With the friendship thing, I definitely did have some good times with friends, and it's one of those like bittersweet things. Like, it did all turn very pear-shaped and horrible towards the end, but there were times that they were nice and times that they weren't. It was, like I said, it was just very toxic. I never knew where I stood with them. I never knew whether they actually considered me a friend or not. So I just never had that level of closeness and that real feeling of being in a friendship group. But yeah, anyways, that's my story, and I really hope that anyone watching this, if you have experienced anything similar, whether it's the friendship part, whether it's the school for some reason being a horrific organisation, then first of all, fight your corner. Make sure you've got people to support you, because I genuinely wouldn't have got through it without my parents being the way they were. I'm forever grateful for the way that they fight my corner in situations like that, and they always had done that at school. But if you are in a situation like that, just please know that it doesn't last forever. Even though that was so traumatic, and they still didn't stop even after I left sixth form, like a lot of the stories that I'll probably tell in different videos. It was just basically 2 years of meeting the worst people ever. like I've ever encountered in my life. So yeah, anyways, hopefully that makes you feel a little bit less alone if you're someone that's dealt with similar things or just currently experiencing something similar, because unfortunately these things are like quite common to happen, but they're just not widely talked about, which is why I wanted to create a video on it, just for a bit of awareness and just to let you know that I'm here now, baby, and I'm doing so well in life. Alhamdulillah. I'm just so grateful for the life that I live, and I've achieved so much. And even though I was that little girl that was so awkward and scared of people finding out that the school had to lend me money, all is good. All is good and all will be good. I hope that just gives you a little bit of hope, if nothing else. But yeah, you guys, that is the end of my traumatic sixth form experience story. It took a lot for me to share that, especially some of the more personal parts of that story. It's something that a lot of people close to me do not know about me, and I shouldn't feel uncomfortable about it, but I do. It's still something I feel uncomfortable about, and it's not something that I want to be judged on. And I feel like the internet is the place where you get judged on things that you don't want to be judged on, so this is why I've been so reluctant to share it. But all that's in my head is if it helps one person, then that's all that matters, really. So that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Let me know if you want more story times, because you know I've got plenty up my sleeve. And I'll catch you guys in the next video. Bye guys!